When I started this job, I thought I had hit the jackpot. My boss was actually kind and supportive, like a dream boss. She made me feel valued and welcomed, but I had no idea that that same woman who seemed so sweet would soon become my worst nightmare. What happened next was something I never expected, and it changed everything.
Imagine this. You just got married. You have that newlywed glow. You're full of dreams and plans for your future. You bought a new house, your first house together. You have a brand new car sitting in your garage. About 8 months after we got married, I was laid off. Just like that, I lost my job, and it wasn't because I wasn't working hard or I was doing a bad job. I was overworking, if nothing else. Needless to say, I was devastated. We had all these things to pay for, all these responsibilities, a mortgage, a car payments, and all the other bills that come along with being married and moving in. I moved from my parents' house to our new house with my husband. I had this boss, unfortunately a female, who was really power hungry and controlling. It was the first time in her life where she gets to have an employee under her. Can you believe that she would even time my bathroom breaks when I needed to use the bathroom? Are you serious? I'll never forget. I would come back to my desk and I would see her standing like this next to my desk, and then she will point on her watch and be like, "You've been gone for too long. We're talking about maybe 5 minutes." Really? So she was on a power trip. And I'd had a lot of jobs prior to this job. When I was a student, when I was younger, and even when I was in my early 20s, I had a lot of jobs. And I never, ever, ever had a boss like that who would time me when I went to the bathroom. I don't smoke. I was a very hard worker. I was working overtime, unpaid overtime, because I wasn't paid hourly. I would get to work between 40 to 30 minutes ahead of time. I would use the bathroom in the morning before my shift, and then I would often start 15 to 20 minutes before my shift began. So I'm working without being paid because there was a huge workload. It was a very stressful job with a lot of work. So for me, I was helping myself out in a sense. So, and I would also work during my breaks, my lunch break. I had a 1 hour lunch break unpaid, but I would work during that. I would eat while I'm working. And at the first maybe month or so, I would even work overtime at the end of the day after my shift. I was working from 7:30 to 4:30. So I would work till 5 or 5:30 at some point, a couple of times, of overtime, of unpaid overtime, just to catch up. Because when I started the job, it was a job that 2, 3 other people were doing. It was like they created this job because no one else wanted to do that type of work. It was split between multiple ladies. They realized that they need a position just for this job. That's how stressful it was. That's how much work, accumulated work, there has been. Make sure to leave a comment. Let me know if you've had an experience similar to this one, or if you know anyone who has gone through this. So why did I put in those extra hours? I mean, at the beginning, my boss would tell me to stay another 20, 30, 40 minutes or what have you at the end of my shift. But then afterwards, I was doing it because I cared, because I wanted to do my best, to give my best, because that's how I am. When I do something, I try to give my all to the best of my knowledge and my power. But how did they pay back my loyalty? Watch till the end to hear the whole story, because there's a lot of detail that goes into this. This is Christy. Today I want to talk to you about something that is really personal and a little hard for me to talk about because of the details. You'll understand if you watch the whole video. And I'm sure that a lot of people, especially women, have gone through this and will still go through this and till the end of time. This is unfortunately an issue. So I feel like there are so many people out there who might need to hear this. If you've ever felt scared or uncertain or completely alone, this video is for you. I had just graduated from university with a nutrition degree, and I had found this job. It was an office job at a food company, but I was excited because I was eyeing the research and development department that they have. I felt like after maybe doing a year or two in the office, I'll move on to the research and development department. So that was my goal. So when I first started, my boss was actually super nice and super sweet. She was too good. I think they say, be careful of the super nice people. But anyway, I'll give you a little example of how considerate and sweet she was. I'm a person who gets cold in general, or at least I was before I gave birth. They had to keep the temperature inside the company at around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius. Do the math for the Fahrenheit. Sorry, for food safety purposes. So it was, needless to say, it was a freezing environment to sit in for 8 hours, 5 days a week. So I always used to wear like a very thick sweater on top of my clothes. I used to keep my winter boots on all day long. And my boss saw that I was getting so cold, and she had a heater for herself like a small heater. So she brought me a little heater from, she asked around the company and she got me a little heater so that I can put for my feet, at least to keep my feet warm. And that was super sweet. What caused her to change from this sweet, supportive boss to my worst nightmare? In November of 2011, I had a lump over here on the side of my neck that was about this size. And my mom noticed it. I thought I was imagining, but then my mom noticed it. Then my uncle, who is a doctor who lives in the US, came over for a visit at some point. My mom asked him and he touched it and he said, yes, I need to see a doctor. I was lucky enough because one of my cousins was training to become a surgeon. I had a neck surgery. So he referred me to his teacher who's an endocrinologist. So I was lucky enough to get an appointment within about a month. I called and they gave me an appointment a month later with the endocrinologist. He said that this is a lump on my thyroid gland and it needs surgery. It looks like it needs surgery because he didn't know at the time if it was cancerous or not, but he said because of the size of it, it had to be removed. Long story short, I had 3 biopsies done on it, and the results were always gray, which means they couldn't decide whether it's cancerous or benign. But I still needed to go through surgery. This whole thing started in November of 2011. But these things take time, and after 3 biopsies later, fast forward to February. In February of 2012, I was able to find that job there. Long story short, my surgery was scheduled for May 2012, end of May 2012 or mid-May 2012. That's when I had my surgery to remove the lump on this side of my thyroid gland. Now, the endocrinologist as well as the surgeon had advised at the time to only remove half, because the thyroid gland, I don't know if you know, for those of you who don't know, is like a butterfly, kind of shaped like a butterfly. So since it was on this side, they said we'll only remove this part of it, because I had told my surgeon that I was getting married and I wanted to try to conceive, because I didn't have children. And they said, so we'll remove only half of it because it does affect hormones. And I had gotten my job in February of 2012. I went through my first surgery in May 2012. I told my boss everything and she said no problem. So usually people take a good week for this surgery, week off after the surgery to recover, but some people can make it earlier, others take longer. The longest, the full period of recovery that you could take off of work for that surgery would be 3 weeks. So at the time I had my surgery done, I remember it was a Wednesday. By Monday I was back to work after my first surgery, because I felt okay, and this is how much of myself I was giving to my job at the time. I wanted to prove myself, and it's not that I just wanted to prove myself. That's who I was. That's who I am. I give my all. I give my best. So I said, you know what? I took Wednesday off, the day of the surgery, Thursday, Friday, and then I had Saturday and Sunday. By Monday, I went back to work. I was feeling okay. My boss was so happy. She sent an email to all the people that I worked with at the time, and she was saying, oh, she's coming back so fast. She's such a good worker. She didn't want to waste any time. We want to thank her. I really appreciate that she's coming back so soon. And I was so happy. I felt appreciated. That was in May of 2012. At the time, the surgeon had told me that everything looks fine. I managed to clean up all the mass. It doesn't look cancerous. Everything looks good. But of course, after surgery, they do biopsy on the mass removed. They called me about a month and a half later to see the surgeon. I remember I went alone. I was married by then, because I had scheduled my wedding. We had scheduled my wedding for June. It was hard for me I had a wedding in my parents' backyard. They had a big house. They had a big backyard, beautiful backyard. They rented a tent. They rented tables and chairs and hired caterers and waiters and the whole thing, because I couldn't get my wedding done at a big reception hall like everyone else does, because those things you need to reserve a good year ahead of time. I had to wait for a surgery date before I was able to schedule my wedding. So everything was last minute. I knew that they scheduled my surgery for end of May, so I booked my wedding for end of June, because I needed to give a good month at least for my wound here to heal, or as much as possible. I don't know if you can see my wound right here. I was putting lots of vitamin E. I had to keep a scarf around my neck so that the scar doesn't get darker, because if it gets darker, it's never going to go back light. I took all the precautions, the necessary precautions for me to be able to get married a month after my surgery.
Stay tuned for part 2 if you want to know what happened next. It's coming up on Monday.